Hi everyone, my name's Rohan Rakhit. I'm part of the team at Daytimers, and I'm super excited to be in the Royal Albert Hall archives today. We picked out some things to go through dating from the 1800s to the present day. So we're going to explore that history together. This item we picked out is the flyer from the first event that I was involved with at the Hall as a curator and programmer. For an event series that we run called Mehfil. For people that don't know, Daytimers, we're a collective that started in 2021 online, and the mission is to celebrate South Asian artists in the music industry and other creative disciplines. The ethos is if you can't get a seat at the table, then build your own table. And that's what we've been doing in the creative industry since then. Spotlighting artists that come from a spoken word background, a poetry background, live classical music, so Hindustani classical, Qawwali type music. I remember being so proud of that event actually, and even looking at the names on the lineup, how beautifully intersectional the lineup was in terms of representing different generations on the bill. We had music that really celebrated that legacy of classical music and what that represents, and reinterpreting it into like a modern, more contemporary setting. We started off as a record label, releasing dance music, working in raves and festival spaces. So to now be at the Royal Albert Hall, programming and curating events that can cater to the aunties and uncles and children was a really beautiful thing. We're back again at the Elgar Room with another iteration of our Mehfil series. So it's going to be a beautiful afternoon. It feels crazy to be there twice in 2 years. It seems pretty magical actually. The next pick is a flyer for one of the greatest British Asian artists ever, in Nitin Sawhney. So this is a flyer of his tour that he was doing in 2001 from October to December, ending at the Royal Albert Hall. Really inspired my career and a lot of the thinking for us at Daytimers, coming from a sort of Asian underground was the term that people used at the time in the 90s for these essentially children of diaspora who were brought up listening to Bollywood music and going out raving in the daytime at daytime raves in the 80s, where kids would go to school with their rave gear underneath their uniform, and when it was sports or an afternoon of extracurricular things, would get in these mega buses and go to these big community town hall centres and rave and be with their people, and there'd be sort of like collective consciousness of hush. So people would rave, live it up, do all sorts of things, have fun, and be home in time for prayers or be home in time for dinner. One of the most important untold stories of the British Asian experience. And in lockdown, when we established Daytimers, and I was nerding out online listening to a lot of Asian underground music, I stumbled across Nitin Sawhney's album called Beyond Skin. But he's one of the few from that scene that managed to pivot to the more classical side of things, classical music side of things, but keeping that like gritty UK Asian focus. He's one of the most programmed artists, South Asian artists ever at the Hall. So he's performed here 14 times now, second only to Ravi Shankar. Which is high enough praise, I think. I could talk about this guy for ages. I still haven't met him, I really want to. But really important artist for my journey, and knowing that you can be really political and really personal with your art, and that can take you to one of the greatest establishments in the world. A newspaper excerpt from The Graphic, which is an illustrated weekly newspaper. The excerpt's from Saturday, May the 8th, 1886. The opening of the Colonial and Indian exhibition by the Queen Her Majesty, reading the reply to the Prince of Wales's address in the Albert Hall. you've got this incredible black and white photo of Queen Victoria surrounded by a bunch of old white dudes, looking very prim and proper. And yeah, this was the opening of this exhibition or festival in and around South Ken. Goods would be stolen from the Indian subcontinent, shipped overseas, and the exhibition was used to help cement and solidify bonds between the subcontinent and the ruling class, I assume. So lots of archaeological artefacts we sold, and silks and spices and things like that. Part of the colonial machine, this festival, and the opening ceremony being in the halls of the Royal Albert Hall. Seeing yourself on stage or seeing yourself in an audience, I'm immediately not seeing a single South Asian face in a festival claiming to be celebrating the Indian subcontinent, which is a very, very interesting phenomenon. And not only is the new show the grandest, richest and most interesting of the series, of which it forms a conclusion, but it has character of its own. These were international. This is imperial. At them, all the nations of the earth met in friendly rivalry. Now, on the contrary, all foreigners are excluded, and even the mother country herself has to stand aloof, except as host. Just looking at this image and not seeing any colonial subjects, i.e. subcontinental brothers and sisters, it's just interesting knowing that who this hall served and how it was being used by elites in the establishment to sort of keep public sentiment towards empire to being a really positive thing and exoticizing it, and really, really interesting, contentious article this. And the reason for picking it out is that I think it's worth addressing the more contentious sides of the history of the hall, and how it's beautiful looking at previous examples of South Asian artists taking up space here and being welcomed in. But I think with that as well, there needs to be a conversation of how contentious us existing in these spaces actually is to start with, how countercultural that is as well, actually. And a space that historically has benefited from our art, our goods, our service, in probably helping erect a place like this or finance an establishment like this is a really important conversation to be had. There's a sense of unease I get looking at this, understandably, but also a sense of pride actually, in which the event series that I was talking about before, Mehfil, we are taking up space. And when I'm programming our artists, one of the first things I've said to every performer, namely the poets and spoken word artists, is like, I don't shy away from these conversations at all, and that I want our audiences to be educated and feel that countercultural significance of themselves being sat in these halls and listening to people tell their stories and bring their stories into the space. Thanks to the Royal Albert Hall team for having me and for watching this video and allowing me to go into the history of this incredible building, incredible in both senses. And come on Sunday for Mehfil.